You're in for a treat. We have our PM tool session tonight featuring Miro, presented by Scott Sachs from Think Consulting. And I'm going to hand it over to Paul Ross, who will tell us about some Zoom etiquette tips.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. A couple quick housekeeping and etiquette items. As a reminder, we are recording today's session for the benefit of our membership and continuous improvement. Please go to our local chapter's website and library. There's a lot of free PDUs in there. We've been keeping all of these videos there, a lot of good information for you. Please mute your microphone to keep background noise to a minimum. We'd love to see your faces, however, be cognizant of the camera position and what you have going on in the background. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them via the chat to either me individually or to the group if you're not shy. And then what I do is I just keep a parking lot and log everything. And then at the end, Scott and I will have a nice little conversation and get all those questions answered at the end of the presentation. Only registered members will receive the PDU hours automatically because of the member ID included on the registration. If you're not a member of our chapter, however, a member of PMI or other respective chapter, and you'd like Rocky to work the magic for you automatically, please send him an email at assistant@southfloridapmi.org, and we'll put that in the chat for you as well. And now, without further ado, I'll give it to our president as she has good news with our 35th anniversary right around the corner. Check out her awesome background. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks, everyone. A very good evening to all of you. And I welcome all of you on behalf of PMI South Florida Board. We appreciate your time, and trust me, chapter is working continuously to deliver programs, events, webinars that add value to your experience and should be of a lot of practical importance in your careers, in our careers. Today's session is an addition to our tool session series, and I'm sure this will add value, will have tremendous importance for all of us and a great learning experience. I would take this opportunity to mention about a couple of events that we have in upcoming 2 weeks. Next week, pretty much same time, we will be having a virtual celebration of our 35th anniversary. I look forward to see you there as well. We will have games, trivia, raffles, and a session on mindfulness, as well as interviews from past presidents and a special message from PMI Global. So looking forward to see you. Also, I know we are doing these virtual events since 2020 Feb, but we will have, and we are trying to now see in-person events, how well it suits us, all of us in this COVID situation. So we will have our first in-person event of this year on 10th of June. That will also be a celebration of 35th anniversary in that series only. And COVID precautions, we are absolutely taking care of that. I look forward to see you there as well. Now, for today's session, welcome Scott. Scott Sachs from Think Consulting. He has over 14 years of experience. His PMP, CSM, PMI, RMP, PMI, ACP, and his project management experience is primarily in marketing and technology domain. Scott will mention a lot in this session, and he'll talk about other things as well. But I want to real quick highlight Scott has executive MBA from Loyola University of Maryland. He has a bachelor's in English and history as well as an associate's degree in computer animation from Art Institute of Philadelphia. Scott, floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I guess with further ado, I will share my screen here and we can then get started. All right, let's see. All right. And in a moment here, you should see the presentation. All right. So. All right, so you should be seeing now the presentation. I get some thumbs up. Good, good. Okay. So welcome. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, everyone is in the right Zoom meeting here. And if you're not, welcome anyway. Hope you enjoy. You probably aren't going to get a PDU then if you're in the wrong place. Probably don't know what that is, but hopefully everyone is here. So tonight, we're talking about a virtual whiteboard collaboration tool called Miro. So let me go here and just kind of kick things off so that we know what we're doing tonight. So I'll have a little quick introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the sticky note. Then go into kind of the product overview, talk about some of these processes that that I've used and that I do that have turned virtual. We'll go into some Q&A at the end. And so, like Paul said, if you have questions, just pop them into the chat and we'll get to them. So some of the learning outcomes from tonight. So I know a lot of you are here for the PDUs, but in addition, hopefully you'll learn something new, have some fun. You'll see examples of some of these processes that I run, and then also learn some cool features of a really neat tool that's out there. So one of the most challenging things of giving a presentation like this is that I can't see or hear anyone. So it's, during the presentation, it's really hard to read the crowd to see if I'm going too fast, going too slow. I can't move around the room like I used to. So, but, I'm just going to go through this. I'm going to try it out. And I figure that I have experience with the whole silence thing based off of the reaction I get from my kids with my dad jokes. Oh, wow. Okay. So I was going to say, I thought maybe I'd get some crickets, but no, I appreciate that. So there we go. That means we're off to a good start. All right. So who am I? I'm many things. I do many things. I'm a project manager. I'm an artist. I'm a consultant. I love a good sci-fi fantasy flick. I love comics. I'm a daddy of 2. I have a 11-year-old boy, 8-year-old girl. I work for company called Think. It's a national technology and operations advisory practice, as well as strategic hiring. I've been working with Think, I guess, almost 3 years now after spending a good chunk of my time in higher education. And what I love about Think is that I'm able to experience, these different cultures, different challenges, working with some great companies and a lot of great people. And, I love being able to share my experience and my knowledge. And at the end of the day, putting a smile on somebody's face, knowing that, I've hopefully made their life easier and also less stressed. So, that's kind of me in a, in one slide, right there. All right, enough about me. Let's kind of jump into our history lesson. So the sticky note, they were developed by Dr. Spencer Silver. He was a chemist with the 3M company. And what Dr. Silver set out to do was to create this super strong adhesive, like super glue. But by mistake, he created this weak one. One of his colleagues, Art Fry, kind of saw this adhesive and had the idea of using it as a bookmark because he was able to take it off and, keep reusing it in his book. So, 3M saw, opportunity in this. So they launched it in 1977 as an adhesive product called Press and Peel. It didn't do well. And they did a rebranding and a relaunch in 1980. And that's what we know of as Post-it notes. So, you know, you've made it when a sticky note, people just call it a Post-it note, you know, when they call it the actual name brand. So it's been pretty successful. I don't know if Dr. Silver ever really reaped any of the benefits of creating the sticky note or not, but you know, we all do. And so why are we talking about a sticky note? So when I go to a client, you know, I'm armed with packs of stickies and Sharpies in my bag. You know, in fact, when we're stationed at a client for a long period of time, I'll bring in my whole arts and crafts kit where it's markers, tape, glue, string, you know, all that fun stuff that we do on different projects. You know, the sticky note itself is such a great brainstorming tool. It's great for gathering lots of information. You know, you can have lots of people working on it at once, and you gather all of this in a relatively short period of time. It's great for notes. You can pick them up, you can move them around. Everyone's participating, so it's not like you're just waiting in line for somebody to finish and then you get to write your stuff on there. You know, one of my favorite parts is they're colorful. You know, so it's not just, you're not just stuck to one color. You can add some individuality in there, and you can also color code with what you're doing. You know, I really see these as essential tools for project managers. So this actually is a cool fact here, but if you ever notice that when you put a sticky up on the wall, a lot of times it curls up and then it'll just start falling. That's because there's actually a correct way how to pull a sticky note off of the sheet. So if anything, you know, you get out of tonight, you'll at least get the proper way to peel a sticky note. You know, most of us, and I'm showing on the video if you can see that, but peel off the sticky note from the top like that. That actually is, if you can actually see my sticky note there, is why it started curling there. What you actually want to do is you want to peel from the side. And in the picture here, they actually turn the whole sticky note to its side. And then you actually just peel from the top. That was actually a bad example because you can see it's still folding up there. But that actually is the correct way you're supposed to put it up there. And then it is supposed to actually stick on the wall better. So there you go. That hopefully was the worth the price of admission. All right. So this pandemic happened, you know, everyone went remote. You know, it's hard to do a lot of these things with stickies when you're now remote or not in the same room. However, there's tools out there like Miro that come into play. So Miro, it's a product that actually used to be called Real-Time Board. They had a name change in March of 2019. And this new name was inspired by a Spanish artist named Joan Miro. And the reason why they went with this name was because his abstract art style really, the company felt that it matched the way people were using their platform. The product started out, you know, it's this whiteboarding collaboration tool. And then because of the infinite possibilities with it, they did this rebrand because they just saw how people were just using it for all kinds of different things. You know, every board that is in there, every canvas is unique. You have different ideas that are expressed through different colors, different shapes. The tool itself is updated in real time. Everyone works on it at once. You can see updates as they happen. Very easy to use. You know, I've been able to get people into the software and give kind of a quick 1 to 2 minute intro on how to use it, and then we're off and running. And there's hundreds and hundreds of templates that are available, plus a community out there that share ideas and share thoughts and notes and stuff. So it's not just collaborating in the tool, it's actually collaborating about the tool. All right, so this here is just a little marketing screenshot that I took from their website because you get to see, you know, some of their features that they talk about. You can see kind of how the cursors are there. You know, if you've worked on Microsoft Online or, you know, like Google Docs and you see person updating and working on their stuff, it's kind of the same thing in Miro. You have this kind of blank canvas there. And a really neat feature is you can do video chat with it. So, you know, like you're actually in the program with doing video chat. You don't need the separate product out there to do that type of chatting. This here is kind of what the blank screen looks like. It's your user interface. It's this simple kind of toolbar that's on the left, and you expand it for, you know, more options. It's just a click and drag. Click the sticky note, pull it out onto the whiteboard or the pen tool, whatever. In a lot of ways, it works the same way as like PowerPoint does with the drawing tools in there. You can also use as much space as you want or as little space. So there's really no borders. All right. So now that you've kind of saw some of the basics, let's jump in kind of to the meat of this. And you know, we've just kind of looked at the how of the tool, but now let's look at the why of the tool, why you're going to be using this or why you'd want to use this. So I'm going to run through some of these processes that I use on a regular basis, and then kind of show how they've been transformed digitally using Miro. And yes, the images that you're seeing are actually real people participating on real projects. You'll see real artifacts from projects. They're not stock images. So just pulling that out there. And first one I want to talk about is brainstorming. So brainstorming, you know, gathering data in general is challenging. You know, a good brainstorm, if you've ever been part of an actual real brainstorm, it's about idea generation. It's not spending time jumping into rabbit holes or dissecting the different options out there. It's just getting many options and opinions as possible. One of my favorite techniques for brainstorming is called the Crawford slip method. It's kind of a combination of the nominal group technique and the affinity charting. For those who have taken the PMP exam or, you know, studying for the PMP exam, I wanted to throw those buzzwords out there for you. But again, it's used to generate ideas and contributions, not to create this group outcome. It was created by C.C. Crawford, who was a professor of education at the University of Southern California. And he used this process for 50 some years, where basically everyone comes together. There's a facilitator. The facilitator comes and explains the process and the task at hand, why they're there together. Everyone gets stickies or, you know, stacks of papers, but a lot of times it's stickies just because of, you know, the being able to pop them on the wall and whatnot. And the way it works is you start off and everyone jots down one idea on a sticky. Then when they're done, they take that sticky up on the wall, go back to their seats. They add another idea on a sticky, take that, go back up to the wall, they read the other stickies on the wall, and then they start putting their stickies in kind of groups if they have similar stuff written on theirs. And it's usually done in silence until the end when you're sorting and reviewing the stickies. And what happens also is the arguing that you do during these is that somebody might pick up a sticky and move it to a different group, you know, and that's when the real fighting begins. So just kidding, by the way, it's not actually violent at all. If you have a group that, you know, has done this before and is kind of seasoned, they know what they're doing, you can actually speed the process up. And instead of doing it one at a time, just have them sit down and do like this big long brain dump of popping things on stickies, then bringing up to the wall and then start grouping them in there. So what you're seeing kind of these images here, the left-hand image, that's some brainstorming of current issues that was going on with a department. And then the one on the right was brainstorming different team roles on a team. So you can really use this idea generation technique for all different types of things, you know, issues, risk identifications, vacation plans, whatever. It's just, you know, to do different types of brainstorms. So Miro simulates that process. So instead of everybody being in this physical room at once, they're now in this virtual room altogether. So this here is an example where the team was brainstorming what the definition of done was or would be for tasks and product backlog items. So just like if we were in a physical room, people started grabbing the virtual stickies, writing down their thoughts and what they believed to be definition of done, and they just started popping them on the board. We then created this white square section, kind of frame some things out here, and started to categorize different definitions of done depending on what people were working on. We also, down at the corner there, we brought in this example of definition of done so that people can kind of read that and just get a sense and help generate some ideas. I wanted to kind of show this because this is, a work in progress. So you can kind of see how it's being built instead of just what the end of it looked like. People can change the shapes and the colors of the stickies. As you start typing, the font gets bigger and smaller. Different fonts also. Some people like, the traditional Times New Roman. Some people like cursive. Me personally, I like Comic Sans. I don't care what people say. I still love that font. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit about the work breakdown structure. So I'm making an assumption here that during a webinar and a PMI chapter, people know what a WBS or a work breakdown structure is, but you know what they say about assumptions. So just in case, a work breakdown structure, it's breaking down your project into smaller, more manageable chunks, and then it's showing it into this hierarchical fashion. And so I like to build out the project plans with everyone involved. I feel that it's a good technique to generate those tasks and the things needed for the project, using everybody's input. I found that when people are coming up with the work that they're going to be doing, they're more motivated, have more of that sense of ownership rather than just getting handed tasks and asking them to do it. Also, when they see that whole big picture, looking at the wall and they see how big the project is, where they kind of fit in, their importance to the project, it gives them more of that ownership and more of that pride, really seeing how they fit in. This little technique with the work breakdown structure, it's basically the same as that Crawford slip method. And I put here where it says project planning with sticky notes, it's a link to a YouTube video. So if you'll get the presentation later, you'll be able to click into that. And it's just this cool video where they kind of walk through this process, using a little animation and just kind of talk about it and why to use it. Quick to use. People can move the stickies all around. Everyone's contributing all at once. Everyone can actually see what's happening. And it really builds that consensus around what the project is. And so what you're seeing here is images of the process here for some various projects that I was on. In the top corner, though, you'll see is a custom sticky that we made specifically for this process. It's got a place for you to add in the task, the deliverable, who's going to be working on it, and then after multiple renditions of this, it's not just like a one-time thing. We would go back up and then start adding in, estimates for the duration, the effort, the costs, all that. So this then, when you're in this physical location, you usually need a big open wall for all the stickies, depending on the size of the project and the size of the team. I'm going to go back here for a second. And if you look at that one picture, where the people are standing against the wall, that took up this whole wall, and that was in this big conference room. And so that can sometimes be a hindrance to get that location of where you can work on. In Miro, you have this infinite canvas, so you aren't shackled by the limitations of your physical space. This example here is showing kind of the end result of that process where the stickies have already been grouped together. We already had people putting in there. This example here was work breakdown for a project where we were setting up a marketing department. So it's the various deliverables, things we wanted to cover as part of the department implementation. And this is where that same type of brainstorm, people were writing these stickies, pulling them out from the tool and then popping them on this board. And then, we started organizing and color coding it afterwards. This again is only one part of the process. Whether you're physical or you're virtual, you still need to have multiple run-throughs where you're breaking these down more, figuring out some of these other responsibilities, the effort, the cost, all that. This again is showing another example. This particular one is for an electronic medical record system implementation where we are a sub on a government contract where our focus was just the infrastructure side of it. But I wanted to show this one just so you can kind of get a sense of some of the color coding that we did, where the purple is those the project chunks, those yellow are the tasks, the red are some of the questions that we came up as we're building this, and then the light green is over on the corner there is some of the deliverables that the customer actually needed to do outside of what we had. So again, just another example of the various things you can do with just the stickies there. Next, we've got Kanban. So Kanban, it was created as a simple planning system. The aim and control is to manage, or was to manage work and inventory at every stage of production at this Toyota plant. So it comes from this Japanese word meaning visual signal, developed in the 40s. David Anderson wrote this book called Kanban Method for IT, Software Development, and Knowledge Work. And that's kind of become what most of us are familiar with when we think of Kanban. It's that traditional to do, doing, done, and you can kind of see listed here the method of using Kanban and why. The images that I'm showing are actually my personal Kanban boards. So the one at the top shows the house chores that I run through with my kids. Yep, I am that guy. I'm that nerd that teaches my 8 and 11-year-old about project management. I play project management risk games with them, and I get made fun of, but it is great because it teaches them, some cool life tasks, but also gives them ownership. And it gives me pride when I watch them, choose the work that they want to work on, taking pride, moving it from, that to do, doing, and then done. So that is, pretty cool there. The bottom one, which is kind of where I'm standing now, even though I have this background on here, so you can't really see the stuff, but this shows, my work that I manage. And this method of Kanban, if you can actually see, there are different columns than that to do, doing, done. And this one actually is adopted using Eric Breckner's Kanban practices, which I'll take a moment and talk about that, because again, this is one of my personal favorites. So Eric Breckner is a development manager for Microsoft Xbox engineering services team. So he wrote this book called Agile Project Management with Kanban. And there's also this really cool YouTube presentation, which I have linked to on his name here, where he walks through the process, but not just sitting there teaching you about the process. His presentation is actually based off of the process. So he's taking questions from people and he's actually using his methods to run this presentation. It's really cool. But basically the way that this version works is you have your backlog and then you have a specify, implement, and a validate column in there, where then those columns are broken down into the active and done with an additional column in there called track. And so the idea that this is really managed on your work in progress, your WIP. And so before any card can move from one of these columns, active to done, and then into the next column, they have to actually meet all of your done rules. And then you can only actually have that much work at a time. So in the example that's shown here, your specify is when you take your items from your backlog and you start breaking it down. So you'll see in that first column here, if I can use my mouse and see, it's got this one task in there. The WIP limit up here is only 2, so we can only bring in 2 cards to break down into smaller chunks, and that's what ends up in here. Then once you're ready, you can take those into your implement, and you can only have 5 in at a time. So you'll see there's only 5 here in your active and in done. This specify column is the only one where you can really go past that WIP limit because of that result of breaking those down. But it's really effective And it's a constant flow. Kanban is always about constant flow. The difference of using, something like Scrum or a different agile practice, because you're always moving things. And that's the done rules that you see is just an example of done rules, that this is something that your team would come up with, working on, what they think it should be right before you can move to the next one. And then you'll see, those WIP limits, again, based off of your team's capacity. So this is an example of what a Kanban board looks like in Miro. Here, it's color-coded based off of the deliverable, but you can color-code it off of the person assigned or really anything that you want. It's very flexible. I want to be clear here, though, that this does not compete with a tool like Jira that has like all the built-in flows and filters and the reports. This just reproduces that physical board that you would have on the wall, making it virtual. However, Miro integrates with tools like Jira. So you could actually populate this board with cards from Jira, giving you more flexibility on how they're displayed. For example, we did this where we had multiple Jira boards on a big project, and that we were using SAFE. And we were able to then take those cards out and populate a big PI planning board in Miro based off of what people had inside of Jira. So a lot of things you can do with those integrations. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call here an Ignite session. So at Think, we have this process and we call it Ignite, where when we come onto a project, we need to come and get rapid control of it. So we need to start getting a lot of information up front so that on day one, we can actually start and go full speed ahead. So the way this works is we usually have these big sticky notes. It's just easier than writing on a whiteboard, because then we can roll them up afterwards. We have these kind of predefined categories. We sit in a room with a person or people close to the job at hand, and then we go through the categories and do these brain dumps about all the information in there. Afterwards, then we transcribe that data, pop it into a Word document with the images on here, plus any of the other notes that came out of our conversation. And what we're essentially doing here is what in Miro they call a project canvas. So I wanted to show a couple of these project canvases here from Miro. So what you're seeing here is an electronic medical records implementation again. And this started out from a template in Miro where went in and customized what each of these blocks were. And so this particular example was done with several sessions of interviewing people and gathering this information. And then this became kind of the end result. And it was used more like a visual scope statement or kind of like a mini charter to kind of create that consensus of the project. This example here, though, was different. That this is was more like an Ignite session where we were working with a curriculum publishing company, and we were coming up with a back to school campaign, something that they had never done before. And so we did the same type of thing. We used this template, we customized the different categories in each, and then everybody is collaborating in real time with their stickies, popping things into the different boxes. And then afterwards, we kind of went through each one of these and really kind of created this this outline, this frame of what this back to school campaign was going to be. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the retrospectives. So on a traditional project, it usually ends with, a lessons learned. And that lessons learned, it involves, your project team, your stakeholders, your customers, anybody and everybody. How many of you actually done this lessons learned at the end of your project, and then you filed it away into a database, never to be seen or used again? I know I'm guilty of that. The idea is you do this lessons learned so that way the next time you do a project, you've kind of learned from it. The retrospectives, though, are are different in that aspect. You know, they are held with just your team, and they're done at the end of an iteration as part of, you know, an agile run project. And that iteration, that's your sprint, that's your any kind of time box that you're working in there. These retros, they allow for continuous improvement because the changes that you're talking about are immediate. You're not waiting to the end of the project to use on your next one. You're making these incremental changes on the project that you're on right then, right now. Just as an example, when we're running retros, when I'm in my retros, what we the team, myself, we try to commit to is a 5% change after each sprint. Why 5%, you might ask? Well, it's small enough that it's not going to frighten people. You know, if you go in there and you say, all right, at the end of this retro, we're going to commit to 25% change in what we're doing. That could really throw somebody off. 5%, you know, that's nothing. But, you know, 5% is also really hard to quantify. So little secret here is that saying 5%, most of the time, people are going to commit to it, but actually are going to be doing more than 5%. And after time, those small changes, they really add up into big things. And before you know it, you've made these changes along the way, and now it's just becomes the way. You know, you're not looking back at what changes that you've had because you've been doing them gradually. So Spotify had released this retro kit, and there's a link to it also there in the green. And they came out with kind of this handbook, this guide for teams to be able to run these retrospectives by themselves without having an agile coach on their teams, you know, to try to become more self-sufficient in what they're doing. So this is one of my personal favorites, the retros, where the idea is you create this picture, you know, on the whiteboard of this sailboat. You've got your team on the sailboat. Then you've got kind of the wind area where that's things that speed up your team. You've got the anchor. Those are things that slow down your team. You've got the rocks, and that is your risks. You've got this island, and those are, you know, representing opportunities. And then you've got the sun, where you're giving out the kudos and the appreciations of stuff on the team. And the way that this works is that everyone writes down on their stickies, you know, the different areas. If there's something that, you know, that really slowed them down, that was impediments on the project, they write it on the sticky, and they'll go and they'll put that on there as the anchor. You know, they just kind of fill it up there. And then everyone does dot voting. If you're not familiar with dot voting, everybody gets a certain number of votes. Let's say everyone has 4 votes. They go around and they read the stickies, and then they put a vote on the ones that, you know, really interest them or, you know, really important to them. And then what that does is that prioritizes what you are going to spend your time talking about. The ones that have the most votes, that's where you're going to talk about. It's pretty straightforward, but this way is just, it's another way of looking at a retrospective, you know, instead of the what worked and what didn't work. It really forces people to think about things differently, and not just the negatives, you know, things that speed the team up. Instead of saying, you know, what are positives on the project, you can say, you know, what are things that really pushed us forward on things, and, you know, looking at it, you know, with this visual. So this is an example in Miro. You can kind of see my awesome drawing underneath, or maybe you can't really see it, but, you know, I guarantee that this is the sailboat exercise there, except with the exception of we had icebergs in our ocean, not the rocks, even though there's a tropical island right there next to the iceberg. I don't really know where we got that from or why we did an iceberg, but we did. So initially, I drew this picture, and it's very hard drawing with the mouse. You know, a lot easier these days if you have a stylus and a touchscreen and all. But I did this with a mouse. I know it's very impressive that I did that, and it's also a little embarrassing when you heard that I went to art school for animation. Yet I put something out like this. But anyway, we created this frame around it, And then we had, people write down their different things, and you'll see that we have different stickies of different sizes, different colors, different shapes. We had to actually have them go off the screen because there was a lot of things in here that, just didn't fit on this board here. And we left it that way just for whatever reason. But I wanted to show that, this infinite canvas gives you a lot of opportunities to do different things in here. The also nice thing about this is we would go over here, and if we saw something that, was written as an anchor, something that slowed the team down, but we realized it actually was a risk, we could just pick that sticky up and move it over. And again, this was done all virtually. All this stuff is the virtual things you can do. So it really mimicked what you could be doing in that real physical environment. This is another example of a retro. This also is in that retro kit. We did this for that back to school campaign that I showed a few slides over. But this one is, a little bit more straightforward, not the fun artsy stuff with the sailboat. You have a column of a plus sign, and that's the things you liked. Then you have this column with the triangle of things that you want to change. And so we started putting that there, and then we took it a step further and started categorizing the things on the stuff we wanted to change. Then we also realized we had a whole bunch of questions. So we were easily able to just modify our board and add this area in there for questions without having a huge delay in what we were doing. So because of time, I can't really go into like every single type of things you can do with Miro, but I wanted to show some quick examples of how I've used it as well, with just maybe a little bit less descriptions than I've been showing. This is a simple workflow. This session here occurred with talking the code review process with a few developers. We had a virtual meeting, and we started talking about it. I was asking them questions, and as I'm asking questions, I'm actually building this. If there was something that I didn't understand, or I heard wrong or got it wrong, they were able to kind of see what I was creating and correct me right in there. And I know that this really looks very simple and very direct, and it is. But if any of you have experience working with developers, they don't think in this fashion, or like they don't like to document anything. So this process really helped us. Those visuals in real time, it made such a difference in connecting and making sure that I understood what they understood, but then also being able to see some improvements that they needed for future work, and trying to do that process improvement there. So this one is a marketing strategy roadmap. Looks very confusing, especially when you're looking at it the first time, but it's very, very high level here. And what it really actually is along the left sides, you'll see these 4 different areas that we broke down the project into. And then those 4 areas broken down into kind of even smaller chunks. And then it just shows kind of this high level timeline where you've got, Q3, Q4 going across the top, and then just what we were planning on doing. So again, this is just to give this kind of overall big roadmap of what our plans were and what we were targeting to go with them. This is a traditional mind map that you can do in Miro. This is an example brainstorming for that marketing department. Again, this was specifically for the onboarding process. Miro has multiple designs, presentation modes. You can break it down into the different nodes and all. So if you're into mind mapping, it's just an added advantage that Miro gives you. And here I wanted to show Lean Coffee. This is an example Miro template. So this actually was not a live usage of it. But what Lean Coffee is, if you're not familiar, it's a different way to structure certain meetings. It's not good for all meetings, but certain different types of meetings, Lean Coffee is great because the attendees actually run the agenda. You talk about what is important to the attendees. And the way it works, the attendees write down whatever's on their mind, or if you're having a certain meeting with a certain topic, they're writing whatever's on their mind about that topic. One topic per sticky, just like with all the others. Then the attendees go and review what everybody wrote and kind of understand, ask questions about them, but then they get their dot voting again. And again, maybe it's 4 votes per person, 5 votes per person, whatever. They start putting their votes on the topics that they're really interested in. And then that forms your priority of how you're going to start talking about these. And you'll have a set time box, whether it's 2 minutes or 3 minutes per topic. At the end of that time, you just ask your attendees, do we keep going or do we move on to the next one? And it's really neat. And if you haven't been part of a Lean Coffee, or if this is the first time you're hearing about it, I recommend doing a little searching, learn about it, because it's really awesome. And with everything being virtual in the world today, you can actually join up meetups from all around the world, and that are using this format. I belong to one that meets on a monthly basis, where we just jump in and talk about anything agile. And it's really, really cool. So this is just another kind of list of all the different many templates that are available and things that you can do. I'm not going to sit there. I'll let you just kind of look at this and read this. But with that, I want to ask, if you saw something you like, how could you use Miro? And we're running out a little bit of time here. We're going to want to make sure we get to questions. But I want to say that we can keep this conversation going. Think is hosting another session next week, where we're going to actually be, me and a colleague of mine are going to be comparing Miro with another tool called Mural, which does a lot of the same types of things. We're going to be doing some pros and cons. I'm going to take this link, I'll pop it into the chat for you, so that way you have it there. But come join us and we can keep this conversation going. I also put down a reference slide here for you. So if there's anything you want to learn more about or get some more detail, you've got kind of the links right there. And so with that, appreciate all of your time tonight. Hopefully you got something out of this. I know we kind of went quick. There was a lot of information there, but hopefully you had some fun. It was informative. But let's link up. There's my LinkedIn information. We can talk about Star Trek. We can talk about comics. We can even talk about project management if you want. But reach out. And I also put Think's website. You can learn more about Think and what we do. And so, Paul, I want to bring you into it, and let's get to some questions here.
Hey, so far we don't have a lot of questions, but we do have a few. And knock out Christina's comment because you asked us a question, and she said that she's currently using Miro for org design and org efficiency project.
Yeah,
very easy to move people around the board, and we have a text group. And one of the things that we've talked about in the text from the presentation is it's probably one of the best things I've seen to replicate the consultants that come in and have their artistry bag. So, for, my company, when we do one of those projects, it's a good way to get people, that aren't necessarily all here in Miami, to instead of having to fly them in, put them up in a hotel room.
Yep.
It's an easier solution. But then that also brings us to one of the questions we had. What are the costs? Is it based on a per person?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say, I don't work for the company. I get nothing from the company. So, this is just one of the tools that I use. So I want to make that straight, okay. I would say go out to their website. They've got different packages. They have a free version where you can have up to 3 boards, and you can invite as many people as you want into your free version, into these 3 boards. Then they have individual licenses, and then they also have enterprise licenses. Me personally, I've used both an enterprise license because I went to a client and they had the enterprise license, so I was able to use it off of there, which was great because everybody in the company had it. I use the free version a lot because of the ability to invite as many people that don't need licenses to get in there. And just a little secret, I'm going to whisper it here, but if you create multiple accounts, you can have more than 3 because you can link them up together. So you didn't hear that from me though, right? Right. Anyway, so yeah, so I would say just check out their website. And it's awesome. They're actually a really cool company. I went to a virtual conference and Miro, I guess, was sponsoring it. And during kind of the lunch break, you were able to join kind of a roundtable of just, like 8 or 9 people, and they gave you a board so that you can actually talk in video conference as if you were at a real conference sitting around a table. So it was really neat.
Right. And then Jeff asked, can you use a PM tool like Smartsheet or Microsoft Project to create a timeline and then use Miro to take the data and visualize it, kind of like the roadmap that you referenced?
Yeah, so there is on Miro's website, they actually have, a list of all of their out-of-the-box integrations with different products. I don't know specifically, I have not done it with those, but they could be on there in Miro. I don't know, so I would just point you out to Miro to check, because chances are they've got something out there. Now, I will say there are other tools that I've used. I can't think of what it's called right now, but actually would sync up to with Smartsheet or something and do specifically just a roadmap. Miro gives you more than just a roadmap, so it all depends what you're really looking for. But there are all these third-party tools out there that you can pop in and out with your programs that you're using.
And then, I think everybody would want to register for that meeting next week on Tuesday. So if you pop that into the chat so people can get that.
Yeah, let me go and do that right now. I'm gonna stop sharing here for a second, so that way I can get the chat here.
Christina also mentioned if you look at the user community, they've figured out how to import almost anything. So I guess that's a pretty good active user community.
It really is. I mean, like I said, it's not just a collaboration tool. It's people collaborating about the tool. So I did just pop the link in there to register for the PM Underground. So, please join us.
And just to give you another little thing, not only can you learn more stuff and learn about Mural, there's another hour that's a nice free hour. So you're up against it and need hours. These are great ways to do it. Also look on our website and watch some of the pre-recorded videos from previous tool sessions. Right now, I do not have any other questions. So if anyone else has a question, now is the time to ask. But I found it very useful, and I was surprised at how well it works and was able to replicate the sticky board.
Yeah, and I was showing a lot of what I do with sticky notes, but again, it's a whiteboard, so you can do whatever you can on a whiteboard. You can do within Miro. I just typically lend more towards the sticky notes because it's one of my favorite tools out there.
All right. You're getting kudos from a bunch of people, so that's always good.
Oh, well, thank you. It was fun. It was different than, because normally a physical location would be walking around, interacting and all that, but I appreciate everybody's time.
All right, and then I'll turn it over to Sue, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Great.
So I have my slides in reverse. The thank you slide is at the very end. That's to keep you, Scott. But I did want to let everyone know what's going on the rest of this month. And then in May, we have, of course, our 35th anniversary celebration. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really is. And next month, we have another PM tool session on Asana. On the 13th, we have the Red Pill Executive Book Club that's brand new. And on the 19th, a Toastmasters demo and intro meeting. Last 2 activities are brand new. You're gonna love both of them. If you haven't already done so, please sign up for the book club so we can get that book out to you and you can start reading it. You're going to be entertained. The author is one of the founders of Think. And it's a very delightful book. It's an easy read and it's very entertaining.
And then just, Sue, as far as the presentation, I know we'll have it in there because some people are asking about the links to the videos and other links that were in the presentation. So we'll have that posted to our website, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that'll be on our website.
And lastly, a special thank you. Yay, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, Jeff. I think Ed may have joined us as well. Thank you, Think Partners so much for sharing your time, your expertise, and your talent, and your wit. So with that said.
It was a good presentation.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. I learned so much, and I know a lot of folks on the call did as well. So everyone, I don't know if we mentioned this, the PDU will show up in a couple of weeks automatically on your account, so you don't have to do anything, just look for it. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much. Everyone have a terrific evening. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.